Hey, are you struggling with crunchy knees, sore knees, restriction around the knees, restriction around the legs in general, feeling heavy? So what I'm going to ask of you is, do you have a roller? All right. If not this big, is it this big? Okay. A roller of some description, whether it's foam, whether it's got the tough interior, something that you can use to release your thighs. This video is going to give you the opportunity to be able to pause and use it at your own discretion. But the way we're going to look at this is we're going to look at releasing your thighs, releasing your calves. I need you to have about 20 minutes of patience and give yourself the time to release the muscles, to stretch the muscles, and to generally give back function to the muscles that surround and lead into the knee, equally into the hip. And this is what we're going to do today. So let's get started. So before we get on the roller, I just want to see what's going on around your thighs and in the hip area. So this is a nice little way of just warming up and seeing what's going on. Going outwards or clockwise, and then we're going to change direction and go anti. Don't want you to overthink it. I want you to just feel what's going on, knowing that what I'm asking you to do is just warming up those muscles. Let's change the leg. Going out anti-clockwise first, and then clockwise. Just being aware that you might have a little difference between the legs, but if they're generally both feeling a little non-responsive and heavy, I totally get it. So from there, what I'm going to ask of you now is just to swing through. This is about getting your anterior and your posterior, so your front and back engaged. And again, if your thigh is tight enough, you might not be able to swing quite so far back without your lower back getting involved, okay? And the long term is that we want to try and use your legs more than you're using your back. When we get onto the roller, you will see what I mean about range and whether the muscles are gliding or not. So this is where we're going to look into that functional release. Good, so we're just getting that swing. Being mindful that as you are swinging, whether you can feel the psoas area, maybe even down onto your hip flexors, they all link up. My last one for you, you may think this is more heavily into the hips, but depending on the range you have, as you come through with the pelvis, you should be getting a reasonable stretch on your thighs. And in the opposite direction. You may be more mindful that you can just hear your knees or your ankles are clicking or there's pinging going around your pelvis on your hips and you can feel it under your hands. All these things are telling me that the muscles in between those joints are not getting their full glide. So we've done our little warm up. Now we're going to go to the roller. Okay, so here we are with the roller. Coming down onto the roller, I have a couple of rules that I like to follow. I like to go firstly for the entire length of the thigh muscle, or any muscle that is. So we're coming as high up as we can, and we're going as low as we can, being careful to avoid the joints either end of the muscle. I like to think between 6 and 10 rolls of the length. Once you have done that, we then start working our way to the outer edges of the thighs. Now, you may find that this varies depending on how much tension, pain, trauma, whatever you'd like to describe it as, feedback, if it's a bit more positive. You're going to work up and down using the middle, the sides, and if you can create like a 0, an O, you're coming down and up. This is to warm up the muscle area. This is also a great way to show you where you might be feeling tension and how much tension you are feeling through those thighs. Which then brings me on to function. The function.
of finding where the trauma, where the tension is, and then bringing your heel up towards your bum. There's a couple of things that will happen. One, you might not even be able to lift your heel up. The pain that's coming from the stressed area, the pressure area, you might find that you can't even get your heel up. The second one is you will judder as it comes up. You will find that you're getting like a juddering effect as you bring your foot up. And then lastly, you will come up all the way, but it will still be painful. The first one, where you can't even lift your foot, well, the intention of doing it will still stimulate the muscle. Just you trying to bring will bring a little bit in. But I am going to say now that I don't want you doing any more than 30 seconds if it is that painful. You can stimulate more irritation if you roll for too long on set muscles, okay? So it is really important that you just take this as it comes, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes overall, and then let it be. So just to clarify, rolling the full length of the thigh up the middle, also working on the sides. Then you want to then try and get your functional release, and then you should have covered all areas of the behavior of that muscle. It's really important that if you need longer, pause me and continue. But now we're going to go into a stretch. I'd like to take you into the lunge. The thigh is now vertical. We are going to push the hip forward, pull the tummy back. The hands can go into the air, or most importantly, we push the knee down into the floor. It is that intense, or that feeling of pushing down into the floor that you want to feel the lengthening of the thigh. The other good thing about this is that we're not trying to go too far forward that we get into the hip flex and we start bending the lower back. We want to stretch the thigh. And then you're going to flip onto the other side. If I haven't already mentioned it, you want to tuck that toe underneath. Again, keep that leg nice and vertical. Push the hip forward, pull the tummy in, push that knee down. Feel that length by manipulating the pelvis and pushing that knee down into the floor. If you do suffer with upper body tension, then yes, by all means, push your hands up. But this really is to concentrate down here. Once you've done your thighs, you're going to go on to your calves. With any muscle, we must be clear on what a tight muscle is and what a short muscle is. A tight muscle is your more dominant side, your more dense feeling. Your short muscle is your less dominant and therefore less muscle mass and therefore less range. It's really important that you concentrate on the tight side, then the other side, and then come back to the tight side. Dominance brings a lot more pressure onto a muscle group. So I'm now on my calves. I'm rolling forwards and back. Feel free at any point in this video that if you can see that I'm about to explain something, but you're using it for the routine and the method, but you don't need all of the explanation, and just spin me on. It's not a bother. So I'm rolling the length of my calves, gastrocnemius, not going too low that I start going onto the Achilles tendon. We don't need to go there. We need to stay in the gastrocnemius, the big chunky bit of your calf. We go on to the outsides, which is the perennials. We want to be seeing what's going on there. You get any dunking, twanging, any horrible feelings. Your next decision is, do you go from the double leg to the single leg and continue rolling? If that is too much, then go back to the singles. And now you've rolled 6 to 10 times on each leg. You're going to come here and you are going to functionally release. You're going to push your foot away. You are going to pull your toe back. You're going to push your foot away, pull your toe back. You are looking for the same signs that you got in your thighs: any juddering, immense pain, can't even move your foot. If you have tight calves to this degree, I'll be very surprised if you are not struggling with a form of plantar fasciitis in the bottoms of your feet. But things can manifest differently in different people. But if you do have tight and aggressive calves and you have tight and aggressive thighs, this can lead to crunchy knees, this can lead to tender knees, because muscles aren't gliding and joints are taking the strain. I digress. Back to your calves. So we've done the rolling down the centers, inside, outside, finding what is painful, what is your calves telling you. Then you're going to go for that function, all right, that changeover, push away, pull away. Remember, we should be doing this all reasonably within 2 minutes, or in sort of 1 minute with a breather, and then another minute, just depending on your pain threshold. We then need to go to our calf stretch. So there's a couple of things I need you to be clear about. If you go to stretch for the calf, if you go to stretch the back of the leg, and all you can feel is pulling in the back of the knee, this is where your hamstring and your calf comes into the back of the knee. And if you have got aggressive knots, tension, trauma, you need to allow that to relax before you then go into the stretch, because all you're going to be doing is pulling in the back of there. So bear that in mind when you go for the stretch. See what you are feeling first. So we're going for that stretch. We're stretching out the calves between 25 seconds, 35 seconds. You probably will have less tolerance in the calves. They're a smaller muscle. You might find it's a bit intense compared to your thigh. But again, we're all different. My stretch for you though today, I'm going to come out a screenshot, but you are going to use the roller. You are going to use a step. You are going to put your foot up and you are going to pull your hip forwards. This gets into the soleus, I beg your pardon, which is down here, and this is a more definite stretch. So once again, I bring the foot up, the heel down, and I push forward with the hip and stretching that calf. We want to be stretching 25 seconds to 35 seconds, alternate from leg to leg, and generally feel that stretch in the calf. So we've covered our major areas. What's left, and this is going to be mobility ranges and slight movement stretches. For this part, I have 3 mobility stretch routines for you. The first one is going to get the posterior chain to the back of your legs and the front. All I'm going to ask you to do, nice and relaxed, is go down into raggy doll. So you're just going to drop down, okay? You are going to just shake the upper body down towards the ground. Depending on how intense you want to go into the stretch, depends on how close you have your feet together. So if they're really close, you're going to come down. It's going to get really, really central to the back of the legs. With your feet slightly out and you're coming through, all right, you're still getting that stretch, but it won't be quite so intense. From there, we're going to draw up. But from a side perspective, I'm going to place my hands on my lower back. I'm going to drop backwards with my elbows. If you are comfortable in the lower back, I want you to reach towards the heel. Okay, there.
And then you're going to come back into that raggy dog. So just drop on down. I'm going to ask you to try and do this 3 times through. So we're just dropping down, really feeling the stretch down the back of the legs. And then once again, gently peel up the spine. We're going to push the hips forward. We're going to try and balance on the entirety of our feet. And we are going to reach down to those heels, exposing and lengthening the quad. So in all importance, if you are feeling this majoritively in the lower back, then we need to look at stretching and ensuring that that lower back is strong, okay, and functionally sound. But with regards to this stretch, we should be feeling it in the stomach, and as you breathe out, you should feel like a judder in the tummy. That's when you know your stomach muscles are working. And then we drop back down again. Drop back down, feeling that stretch possibly intensify, move, okay, through your hamstrings, possibly into your bottom. If the stretch stays where it is, you've definitely got multiple knots that need to be released. You can't stretch a knot. And then finally, once again, coming forwards with those hips, you can again go for that angle, reaching for the heels, really stretching out those thighs. I do appreciate that if you are tender or sore in the knees, you must take it slowly and really concentrate on the muscles releasing rather than putting all the pressure into your joints. So that is my first partnership. All right, your posterior stretch and then your anterior stretch. We're now going to take this down to the ground. So we're going to come down, make sure you've got cushioning for your knees. And what I'm going to ask of you is to come up into downward dog. So bum up. You're going to reach for the toe, drop down, step through. So we're now stretching that thigh, holding for 3, 2, 1, transitioning to the other leg, pushing through. Very similar to the stretch you did earlier. However, we are now holding it for a shorter amount of time and putting it into movement. So now we're going to go back up. Again, reach for the toe. Reach for the toe so you've got a bit more calf. Come back down. Step through. So we're getting more into the hip flex as well, into the thigh. Coming back, swapping over. Again, getting that stretch. More of a range. If you need longer, want longer, then pause. Get on with this. Come back to it, press play. Back into downward dog. Reach. Reach. Last time. So you can do this up to 10 times. And we've been getting mild movement into this in between. So you're getting a really nice chain of front and back, front and back, front and back. Coming out of here. If you need to continue, want to continue, feel that it's doing you good, then up to 10 times. Okay? Bringing us onto our last movement for the thighs. Okay. Standing up. So part of your warm-up, you will doing the circle. I'd like you to do 5 outs. Then I'd like you to try pendulum foot. Then 5 ins. A couple of things you're going to feel while you're doing this is hopefully more coordination and more movement. Secondly, more range and possible increased fatigue as you have more movement through the muscle itself. So we've got this swing going on and then the other way, keeping that balance, using a chair or holding on to something, the wall. Lovely. Back into those hips. And then the other way. And then those swings. Here, swinging back. This just completes the whole journey from start to finish. How you warmed up to how you then feel. Changing over. Focusing and keeping everything in the thigh and below the waist. And there. I really hope this routine sequence gives you some relief for the knee, for the hip, for the muscles. If you've got any questions, if you'd like to make any feedback, absolutely fantastic. And if I can help with anything else, then please send me a message and I'll certainly help you out. Take care. Happy rolling, happy stretching, happy movement.